Beyond Law CLC. Welcome you all to yet another engaging webinar on the perspectives of maintenance under the different provisions of law. As we all know that maintenance is an important facet in respect of, in case of any discord, and there are different issues which invariably bothers the mind of a lawyer or as well as a person who is undergoing that agony. What are the various platforms or various laws and provisions under which this could be done? And those who have been connected with Beyond Law CLC endeavor know that Justice Shalini Phansalkar Joshi has been on our platform, and the insights given by her were, as usual, what we read on the Google, were immaculate and to the point. So we had requested her to give exclusively a topic on maintenance under different provisions of law, because those judges and invariably all people have knowledge on all aspects, but she has a forte, or we can say more specialization, so much so she did her PhD in under the child sexual abuse from socio-legal perspective by her Sigma Mater, the university, by her alma mater, the University of Pune. She had also been selected for 6 weeks training on the subject of gender and law. Her specialization includes, if one goes on the YouTube, there are a large number of webinars on the gender law. And maintenance is an issue which invariably, it comes to a lawyer, he has an issue as to whether he should advise the client under which law, because there are broadly 5 laws and provisions under which one can approach. Therefore, once we requested Justice Shalini Joshi, she acceded to our request to give the insights on this subject, which otherwise is a very broad. But once you have a gist of that, one knows how to advise and go a step forward while advising as a lawyer and a person, because we are also live on Facebook as well as on this platform, so that they could also know under which provisions of law they can ask the advice from the lawyer and to move forward. Without taking much time, I would request Honorable Mr. Justice Shalini Phansalkar Joshi, who is a former judge from Bombay High Court, to give the insights of this broad topic in a capsule form, which we all know that would be a very interesting and a fascinating session in respect of these issues. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shri Vikas, and a very warm good afternoon to all the viewers who can be seen and also who are seeing this program.
Ma'am, you will have to shift the camera slightly because your
okay.
not even
Now
your
it is now it is okay.
Yes, ma'am. So, slightly lower. Yes, now it's perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me the tips also.
No, not at all.
No, being at home, you know, we lack the technical support. So sometimes it becomes difficult. But anyway, thank you so much. About maintenance, as you have rightly said, it's such an important subject. Why? Because half of the population or humanity is considered with the aspect of maintenance. And that half is mostly those who need of it, and as per our legal position and social position, it is the women who are in need of it. No doubt there are certain laws which also grant the right of maintenance to men, and we will be considering that aspect also. But most importantly, we have to connect this issue of maintenance to the issue of human rights, or right to life, right to dignity, individual dignity, which is guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution. But basically, when this right of maintenance was given, it was under Article 15.3 of the Constitution, because Article 15.3 is a totally new dimension of the Constitution, as it tries to remove the inequality which was still then prevailing in the social conditions.
Sorry to bother you. Slightly, you will have to shift the camera because your head is slightly being done.
Now?
Yes, ma'am. No, it's total perfect. 100%.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So it is our constitution speaks of equality, right to equality, equality of status, equality of opportunity under the preamble, under Article 14, under Article 15. But it was realized that social conditions were not ripe. It will be merely a formal equality, and in order to give substantive equality to the women and children, it was found necessary to enact Article 15, subclause 3, which empowers the government to pass any law beneficial for the women and children. So it is a different dimension of right to equality. And when we are considering the maintenance, right to maintenance, we have to remember Article 15.3 along with Article 39, which always talk of right giving substantive equality to the women and children. Along with that, as I already said, that we have also to consider Article 21 of the Constitution, which talks of individual dignity. We don't want any person, whether she is a woman, whether she is a child, whether she is a parent, who are totally dependent on someone else, whether husband or father or the son, to be vulnerable. We want to protect their dignity, individual dignity, their right to life, and therefore now we have enacted this specific provision of maintenance also. Now let us come to the aspect of maintenance, and here I would like Mr. Vikas, can I share the screen? We will go to various.
Yes, ma'am.
Should I
Yes,
put on the PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just check it whether it's allowed.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a minute. Huh? Share, yes. Now it is, can you share? I have done it.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, it's visible.
It is visible, okay. So
but
when
slightly
we are,
you can enlarge the PPT, because on the right side what you are going to show is being reflected. So slightly enlarge the PPT part.
Okay, so I can't have slideshow now, but how to enlarge it? I don't know. Let me see. Or should I reduce this?
It's fine. Otherwise, fine? It's legible.
Okay, okay. Otherwise, I can put it like this. So whether it is possible?
Ma'am, it will be done at your end.
Now it is okay?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So when we are considering the right to maintenance, we have to consider why it is generally the wife who has to come to the court for grant of maintenance. And the second aspect is why right of maintenance is given under majority of laws to wife and minor children only, and not to husband. Because in the course of our discussion, we will be also coming across some laws we are giving such a right to the husband. But those are very few laws, or I may specify there are only 2 laws. But otherwise, all the personal laws give the right of maintenance to the wife, children, and age-old parents. Mainly, we will be considering to the right of wife or the woman. Now, the answer to this question can be found in her social status in the context of her gender. As I said, the unequal power structure in the society has kept the woman at a very disadvantaged position. We all know the decline in female sex ratio. We all know that preference is always given to a male child, whether in education or otherwise. And we all know that social responsibilities or the familiar responsibilities are such that her role as a homemaker is not recognized in concrete monetary terms. And therefore, her primary contribution remains only as a childbearer, a caretaker, and emotional anchor. Definitely, she is a homemaker, but then her role remains confined to these aspects. She is rarely given the educational skills or opportunity to be financially independent. Responsibility of managing the house, cooking for family, raising the children, everything. And our law and policy do not recognize domestic work as a productive work. Surprisingly, even the Marx has also not recognized it as a productive work, though when we consider the compensation law under Motor Vehicles Act, then in the case of death of a housewife, we try to ascertain her domestic work or her role in the home as a productive work in the terms of monetary or economic terms. But when it comes to maintenance or other provisions, it is not recognized as such. Then the answer also lies in the fact that her chances of earning or retaining pre-marriage job are rare, as her career is disrupted due to bearing and rearing of children. Even when she takes up the job, it is low paid, confined relatively to low paid jobs. In India, social and legal position does not recognize marriage as economic partnership. And this is very important aspect because we have followed or following the common law system. And under the common law system, marriage does not mean economic partnership. Under the common law system, his property, husband's property remain his property, her property remain her property. There is no joining of this property or joint ownership of the property, which we found in continental system of law. There, as a result of the marriage, the property of husband and wife becomes a joint property. And therefore, everyone is having right, equal right in the property of other. I mean, one spouse is having right in the equal right in the property of the another spouse. And as a result, on the desertion or even on the dissolution of marriage, she is having equal right in the property of marriage. Therefore, it may be possible that she is not coming immediately on the street or does not become immediately dependent on someone else, but she has something to fall back upon. We don't have this concept of matrimonial property as we have till now followed the common law. However, the common law in other Commonwealth countries had made the changes. They are in England, they are now recognizing that the right to matrimonial home. Under the DV Act, we have tried to recognize, but not the right of ownership or title in the matrimonial property, but only the right of residence. The fact remains that once the woman comes out of the home, maybe for whatever reason, maybe for cruelty, violence, refusal, neglect, she literally comes on the street having no economic support. As a result, the divorce and desertion definitely have major detrimental effect on the woman. They render multitudes of women destitute. We have to locate the right of maintenance in this conceptual framework. And also in the concept of recognizing her economic contribution to the marital life and matrimonial home, because there can't be home unless there is a homemaker, and her role therefore assumes of paramount significance. Then we are also having, I don't know why this is happening. Okay, section 125. I mean, first we will come to which are the laws granting right of maintenance. The first and foremost and the basic and primary law, as everyone of us knows, is section 125 of CRPC. It is considered to be a summary remedy, secular in nature, available to women and minor children and also the age-old parents of all religions. Therefore, this law and the Law of Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, which provides additional remedy, is available to women and children of all the religions. Therefore, both these laws in that way are irrespective of religion, but instead of calling a secular or whatever name you may call, but the fact remains that both these provisions are available to women of all the religion. Section 36 and 37 of Special Marriage Act is also there, which if you perform the marriage under Special Marriage Act, then it becomes available to the woman of any religion. We are also having the provision of section 36 and 37 of Indian Divorce Act, which is available only to Christian women because these acts are religion specific. So except for 125 and Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, all other laws are mainly available to women of all the ages. I don't know why it is not proceeding further. Yes, Mr. Vikas.
I would request the participant who's trying to do the paintings, he can take a canvas or a paper at his place and do the painting rather than spoiling the screens, please.
Because
we can understand your anxiety during the lockdown to create a new culture, but let's not do that. You can at the same time, while hearing, you can also do your painting at your paper. Or we will have to remove that person. Kindly do that. Ma'am, if you could do it, you also have an option of stop the annotation part.
I don't know where is that option. And I am new to technology.
Ma'am, you just see on the right side, there is stop annotation. It will not. View options, there's on the right side, there's view.
Annotation. Annotation?
Yes, kindly do stop annotation. It will automatically stop.
Okay, let me see. Undo. Undo is there. Undo.
One is do, first is do undo. It will automatically be undone, the painting done by my learned friend.
Okay.
And then you can stop the annotation part.
No, it is not possible for me to clear. Should I say clear all drawings?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And one would be then there is a second option, stop annotation.
Okay, now clear all the drawings is at least there. Okay.
And then there is also in the view stop annotation. It will be automatically stopped. If one has to learn knowledge from a person who is a speaker, one should also have this thing.
Clear all drawings.
But that will not help because that person will continue to be creative. So just stop annotation.
Where is that option, but?
Ma'am, and on the view part, on the top you will find view and then you will have a stop annotation.
Annotation is there, but stop is not there.
Yes, it will be. Just check on the right. Yes, not do stop annotation, it will be done. And you can also find that who is writing this. Because since the control is with you, you would come to know who is doing this.
Spotlight. There are mouse, select, text,
view. Just check on the view. There's annotation. Then just click on the annotation.
I see. I got annotation, but I don't get the option of stop.
It will be there. I will just check it out. I will share with you the screenshot of stop annotation part.
Okay.
Yes. Meanwhile, you can continue. We will see how things are to stop. Mr. CAG, we have the security features. Don't worry on that part. Yes.
But it is going, but again coming. That I don't understand.
No, ma'am. That will be by using the eraser. But question is if you can stop the annotations.
No, that is I am not getting. There is only these are the options. You see, mouse. Select.
I'm just sharing the screen share with you. Ma'am, you can start the talk. We'll see.
Okay. So section 20. Then after the other laws which we have seen, we are also having Hindu Marriage Act 1955. That is section 24 and 25 of the Hindu Marriage Act, which is also available to women and minor children of Hindu religion only. And I will again come back to this act provision because it is available to men also, husbands also. Then we are having Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act.
Ma'am, you continue, doesn't matter.
But it is creating a lot of problem now.
Ma'am, I will do that. You just stop the screen sharing, I will do that.
I should stop it? Okay.
Okay.
Stop. Clean sharing. Where do you stop it? Just a minute, huh? Yes, stop share.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I will share the WhatsApp on this. You can continue the talk. I will just do that.
Now let us see. We have started anew. Let us see. Now it will not be. Then, as I said, we are also having Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. Then Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986 available only to women and children of Muslim religion. And Section 39 and 40 of Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act available to men and women and minor children of Parsi religion only. Then we are also having.
I'm sorry to interrupt, ma'am, but this is just a request to the host to remove this troublemaker.
Yeah, I know.
Please remove him. Just, I mean, let us not request. He doesn't have any common sense. He's just here to create nuisance value.
Raju, we always believe in the thinking that a person should always maintain the decorum himself. That can always be done, but as they say, patience is the best way to look forward.
May I say
I think
something?
the better sense will prevail upon him. Yes, ma'am, you can start off. I will also be sharing the stopping of the annotation. Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
Should I start again?
No, ma'am, it's fine. It's fine.
I don't know.
The best
what to
way
do.
is to move. No, it's fine. You can continue with the PPT. He will stop automatically. I know that. We have been doing webinars. Some people actually do not even know that they're doing that. That's the way to move forward. That's the life. Yes, ma'am. You can do with the PPTs. No issues.
Oh, selecting. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Which are the laws granting right of maintenance? There are some more laws also. That is the Maintenance and Welfare of Senior Citizens Act 2007, wherein liability is upon those who are entitled to get property of senior citizens or in possession of the property of senior citizens, maybe not only the children, but also other relatives. But jurisdiction to grant such maintenance under this law is with subdivisional officer, or you may say up to the Tahsildar or the revenue authorities. Definitely not with the court. So we will move to next slide. As I said, there are only two laws which grant right of maintenance to husbands. And out of that one law, as I said, is Hindu Marriage Act. And remember, my friends, this act was enacted in 1955, but at that time also it was so egalitarian that it has granted right to both the husband and wife. At the same time, 1954 Special Marriage Act was enacted, but it has not granted right to husband. It has granted right to only wife. There were earlier laws also, subsequent laws also, like Domestic Violence Act or Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. None of them are granting right to men, but Hindu Marriage Act is granting such right to men also, husband also. And along with it, Section 39 and 40 of Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act of 1936. This act is also granting the right to the husband. So these are the only two laws which grant right to husband. Otherwise, all the laws are granting right to women only. We will deal with these laws subsequently, but at the outlook, we have to remember this fact. Then which courts can grant maintenance? We have family court can grant maintenance.
And though that the person has stopped, I've sent you the WhatsApp how to stop the
okay.
annotation.
Next time if it comes, I will use it.
Yes. It's a very simpliciter. Stop.
Okay.
It is stop annotation for the participants. That it automatically stops it.
Which courts can grant maintenance? That you will find that family court can grant maintenance under all acts except Senior Citizen Act, which I said the judiciary is not having jurisdiction over the same. Then civil court also under all the acts except section 125 of CRPC and Muslim Women Right to Divorce Act. Let me see how you can disable partner within a meeting for only that meeting from ensure you're started it share things in the world located at okay. Located at the, let me check more, okay. Disable annotation.
Annotation for the participants.
Yes, I have done it. Now let
Yes.
us hope it doesn't
Yes. And
appear
now
again.
just erase the previous one. These all red lines will go.
Okay.
Clear all.
Oh, yeah, I will do it. Clear all drawings.
Yes. Now you can go.
Yes.
Ma'am, it's fine now. Once you
Yeah,
stop the
yeah, but I don't know, allow participants to stop, hide, stop नहीं आता है ना अभी तक तो
stop
किया
annotation,
था.
ma'am. I've sent you this thing.
Yeah, more I saw it.
It doesn't say stop. It says disable attendees from annotations.
But the annotation is appearing from my side. No.
No, there are only 2 annotations since I've given you the rights, so you will be able to do it. If I had been the host, then I could have stopped it. You just say it says from within your meeting, ensure you have started a share screen. From the bar located at the top of your screen, there's click more, and then
Yeah, I
from
have
the
gone
drop down,
there.
then it is click disable attendee annotations. Ma'am, but it doesn't matter. We should continue with the topic.
Okay.
Just try that annotation part. Otherwise, I am a strong believer that he will stop it.
Okay. The family court, as I said, then judicial magistrate first class can grant maintenance only under 2 acts. One is 125 CRPC and the other is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. He can also grant maintenance under Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act. Then district court can grant maintenance under Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act and then an Indian Divorce Act. At some places, the jurisdiction is also given to the Senior Division Court. Then we are also having, I don't know why it is happening. Why PPT is not moving now?
Ma'am, that part is with you. Probably you would have stopped it. Just check it out. I would request
But
the
how to
participant
check it out?
on the same part.
More?
Yes, more. Next.
More.
Just
then
click on the number of PPT what you are showing. Let's assume it's 4th. Now click on the 5th one.
It is 10-1.
Yes. So now click on the 10th one.
I don't know what is wrong this time. Last time I have done everything and nothing, no issue. I don't know.
Ma'am, you can tell us. Otherwise, also we will share the PPT in the WhatsApp group. All the participants know that on our Beyond Law group, we share the PPTs.
Okay.
Because the PPT will be shared in the groups and your this would be uploaded on the Beyond Law CLC channel. So they will always know it.
Okay. Relevant factors for consideration so far as maintenance, grant of maintenance is concerned, it is inability of wife.
Otherwise, the screen has changed.
Now, whether you can see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And just click F5, then the screen would also increase. A participant has just informed us. Yes.
Relevant factors for consideration are inability of wife to maintain herself and the minor children, having just and sufficient cause to reside separately, refusal or neglect of husband to maintain them, husband having sufficient means, and the word sufficient means has been interpreted to mean husband being an able-bodied person, inability of parents to maintain themselves, but the entire concept of maintenance necessarily involves dependency and need. That is, the spouse, wife, whosoever, if it is a spouse, husband, or parents or children, they should be dependent on the person from whom the maintenance is claimed, and they should be in need of the maintenance. That is the concept around which the maintenance, right to maintenance revolves. There are other factors also which are considered for grant of maintenance, especially deciding the quantum of maintenance. That is the status of the parties, the needs of the claimant, the income, assets, and lifestyle of the respondent, his other financial obligations and liabilities, and the claimant's individual income and assets. All these aspects are considered while deciding the quantum of maintenance. Supreme Court has explained this concept of maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC in the judgment of Captain Ramesh Chandra Kaushal by stating that it is a measure of social justice which is enacted to protect women and children. And as I said, it falls within the sweep of Article 15.3, reinforced by Article 39 of the Constitution. Initially, until now, it is considered that 125, which is a very basic right, it is a measure to prevent vagrancy or at least to prevent its consequences. It is to achieve the social purpose to compel a man to fulfill his obligation in morally and also statutorily. But basically, this right under Section 125 of CRPC is considered as a measure of social justice. Supreme Court has again said that it is a simple and speedy remedy to prevent destitute wife and children from falling into life of vagrancy, immorality, and crime for their subsistence. It is a summary proceeding where detailed inquiry is not warranted. What do we understand from the same is that even if the proof of marriage, strict proof of marriage like Saptapadi and all these things are not proved, it is sufficient if she alleges that she is wife, and he may be contradicting, but then he will have to prove it in the civil court. But so far as CRPC is concerned, the fact that they have hold out together as husband and wife as a couple will be sufficient for grant of the maintenance under 125 of CRPC. Here, the standard of proof is also not so high to prove the refusal or neglect. It is sufficient if she alleges, she avers, and court is satisfied even if he is not paying for her requisite basic needs, or there is sufficient ground for her to reside separately from him. It is not contemplated that she will have to prove cruelty, which is required to be proved under the matrimonial litigation or under 498A of IPC. Under this provision, it is sufficient that she has to only prove that he has refused to maintain her or neglected. Whether there is sufficient cause for her to reside separately, we can rely upon her evidence about the refusal and neglect. Because ultimately here the rights are not decided finally, but they are decided in a summary way, and those rights can be subsequently and whatever decision judgment given by the court under 125 of CRPC can be challenged or can be reconsidered in the civil proceeding where matrimonial rights are decided. As I am again coming back to these relevant factors for consideration, because all these 2-3 authorities which are considering section 125 of CRPC, they are considering the maintenance as a dole for bare survival of the wife. Actually, the dictionary meaning, because maintenance word is not defined anywhere, but its dictionary meaning shows sustenance. Sustenance means bare survival, support, and that is what was the earlier concept, that it's something is given as a charity for the wife and children. So the amount may be so meager at time. Earlier the limit was of rupees 500 only, and amount was given 80 rupees, 100 rupees, 150, because at that time it was considered that it is sufficient for her survival. But now that notion is giving place to their physical and emotional well-being. And therefore now it is considered that the maintenance has to be adequate to take care of not only everything like food, clothing, shelter, medical expenses, as well as expenses for raising of the children, but also to enable her to lead the same standard of living as she was enjoying in the house of her husband. Now we are having this judgment of the Supreme Court wherein it says that The phrase unable to maintain herself, that is the necessary condition for wife to prove under section 125 of CRPC, does not mean that wife must be an absolute destitute before she can apply for maintenance under section 125 of CRPC. The meaning of this phrase would be the means available to her while she was living with her husband, and it does not take into account the efforts made by her in order to survive. Because so many women, after desertion or after living separately, start doing something to earn for themselves. Maybe doing the work of vegetable vendor or maid servant, or may start doing some temporary job, but that is merely for their basic needs. We can't consider that and say that now she is no more unable to maintain herself. That is what the Supreme Court says. What does it mean unable to maintain herself? Means she should be able to maintain the same standard of living as she was leading in the house of her husband. And to that extent, we have to grant the maintenance. Uh, Again, we are having the latest judgment of the Supreme Court, that was of AR 2014, Bhuvan Mohan. This judgment is important because, as I had said earlier, that it was a concept of sustenance, need, based. Now it is, Supreme Court itself is saying that concept of sustenance does not necessarily mean to lead the life of an animal, feel like an unperson to be thrown away from grace and roam for her basic maintenance somewhere else. She should keep on searching for the job or some minor works. But she is entitled in law to lead a life in the similar manner as she would have lived in the house of her husband. That is where the status and strata come into picture. So we have to consider what state, in which status she was living, what was the social strata of the society which she was having. It was said that husband cannot deprive her of the benefit of living with dignity. It is his moral duty and also the statutory duty. And therefore, to live life with dignity, which is the right guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution, which is a human right itself, that is emphasized by the Supreme Court in this judgment to ensure that the women and children get the same some substantial amount of maintenance depending upon their status and standard. Now, the term unable to maintain herself, what does it contemplate? Suppose she is a well-educated lady, like, in this case of Megha Khandelwal before the Supreme Court, the wife was well-educated, MSc Biotech and preparing for PhD. Even then, it was held that qualification and capacity to earn cannot be a ground to deny maintenance. Capacity to earn and actually earning are two different concepts, and therefore it was held that she is entitled to maintenance. Therefore, so far as women are concerned, the presumption is contrary to what men are having. So far as man is concerned, the moment he is an able-bodied person, it is presumed that he is able to maintain. Whereas woman, even if she is educated, even if she is able-bodied, general presumption is that she is unable to maintain herself. Even if she is having such well-educated qualification, I mean, this is just one case I am citing, but there are several cases. Like about last year, there was a case of the woman lawyer. I mean, she was a junior lawyer, and then she was practicing, but maintenance awarded to her. And the Supreme Court has upheld. Supreme Court says that we know what amount a junior lawyer can earn, and in order to maintain her the same in order to enable her to maintain the same standard of living, her law graduation is not sufficient. But what she is actually earning, that is the relevant criteria, and not her capacity to earn. Therefore, as I said, merely education or her ability to earn is not sufficient. Her actual income is required to deprive her from the amount of maintenance. And therefore, we are seeing that in 99% of the cases, these applications filed by the wives and children under section 125 of CRPC are allowed. Rarely they are rejected because, as I said, the remedy is summary remedy. It is just to provide, I mean, it is just to ensure that she gets something till civil rights are established. And therefore, these are the considerations as regards maintenance are more or less same, whether it is 125, whether it is under personal law or under domestic violence act. Necessarily, we have to see what actually she is earning, and within that earning, whether she is able to maintain the same standard of living as that of the husband. And accordingly, whatever amount is falling, the court has to award that amount. That is what the section, that is what entire concept of maintenance says now. But as I said, the real challenge is to find the balance between the claim of wife and the income of the husband, because wife will always say that husband income is, she will give the exaggerated figure, especially in case of business or individual own self-employed persons. She may say, though he may be earning 50,000, she may say 1 lakh, or his entire endeavor will be to suppress the real income. And therefore, income tax returns are produced by him. But then the Bombay High Court and in some cases Supreme Court has also taken note of the fact that income tax returns are not the true indicators of a person's income, because their every attempt is made to suppress the real income, and therefore it cannot be the sole guidance for deciding his true income. Then the court has to do the exercise of assessing the income in the light of his standard of living, his lavish lifestyle, ownership of the large residential premises, his membership of the various elite cards, credit cards. Everything will have to be taken into consideration, and not merely the income tax returns. So this is an important aspect of the matter. And sometimes, the husband is having such all these lifestyles, lavish lifestyle, but when he produce the returns, they show only 30,000 or 3 lakh, 30 lakh income, but though it may be far more. And therefore, this criteria is always laid down, that for the purpose of determining the maintenance, entire earnings of the respondent have to be taken into consideration and not his net income. This arises mainly in case of salaried class of people, where the husband then start making contributions to various funds of the company, provident fund, etc., and all the other funds, and show his net salary to be very less amount. And therefore, it is said that gross salary has to be considered except for the compulsory deductions. And again, it is said that income tax returns are not the gospel truth for knowing his actual income. Then we have already seen that the criteria is under section 125, she has to be legally wedded wife. That is an important aspect. 125 is concerned because this right is given only to the legally wedded wife, though the strict proof of marriage is not required. Divorced wife also entitled, but if the deserted wife is living in adultery, then she is not entitled. The expression is living in adultery, and therefore singular act of adultery will not deprive her from maintenance. As I said, the standard of proof to prove refusal or neglect is not high. Her sole testimony is sufficient. Aggrieved party can get his rights decided under the civil suit. As regards as I said, the strict proof of marriage is not required. This is the judgment of Chinmunia versus Virendra Kumar Singh of Supreme Court, wherein the term wife, whether legally wedded wife, in that case, what has happened? The wife could not prove the religious right of Saptapadi, and therefore her claim was rejected. And then the Supreme Court said that applying that strict standard may not be proper, and therefore it was said that a broad and expansive interpretation be given to the term wife to exclude those cases where a man and woman have been living together as husband and wife for a reasonably long period of time, and strict proof of marriage should not be a precondition for maintenance, so as to fulfill the true spirit and essence of the beneficial provision. Now, a second wife, as I said, legally wife means legally wedded wife. That is what is defined by the judiciary. And therefore, in this judgment of Yamunabai Adha versus Sanantrao Adha, it was held that second wife is not entitled to maintenance under section 125 of CRPC. As a judge, we come across so many cases where the wife is not aware of the previous marriage of the husband. And then fraud is played upon her, or separation, the fact is there. She enters into this marriage, and subsequently the first wife comes, or she realizes about the first marriage of husband. In such situation, not granting her maintenance merely because she is a second wife is as good as, it is held by Supreme Court, giving the advantage of wrong to the husband. And therefore, in the Badshah versus Urmila 2014 Supreme Court cases, the Supreme Court is held that if second marriage, she may be a second wife, but if the second marriage is performed by way of concealment of earlier marriage, then second wife is also entitled for maintenance. For having this interpretation, the Supreme Court has adopted purposive construction by applying Hayden's rule of suppression of mischief, held that husband cannot be given advantage of his own wrong because he has suppressed the fact of his first marriage from the second wife. And in such situation, she should not become a victim, she should not become a vulnerable. And therefore, a very liberal and very expansive and very, purposive construction being adopted in this judgment. And this judgment, along with Yamunabai Adhao's case, which is pertaining to second wife not entitled, we have to keep both these judgments in mind, and we have to decide whether she has entered knowing fully well that her husband was previously married, then she may not be entitled. But if she was not knowing this fact, then under this judgment, she becomes entitled. Now, many times it happens that husband, to deprive the wife from the claim of maintenance, obtains the decree for restitution of conjugal rights. That if that decree is ex parte, and thereafter husband has not made any efforts to bring her back, then the Supreme Court says that she becomes entitled to get maintenance under Section 125 of CRPC. However, when there is a decree of, the restitution or a decree of divorce on the ground of desertion, then in such situation, what can be the remedy and all these things, that matter is referred before the bench. Sometimes, as regards the children, the defense raises that those children do not belong to him. The children are not born from the husband from whom the maintenance is claimed. And therefore, we have to, the contention is raised that these are illegitimate, or what they call as bastard, which is not a proper word. The children are not mine, though they may be minor. And in such situation, the blood test is asked for. And therefore, the Supreme Court has said that not to order a blood test is a matter of course, not to have a roving inquiry. There must be strong prima facie case establishing non-access. The one only the such blood test can be ordered in summary proceeding like 125 or in other maintenance proceeding. It was held that the law leans in favor of presumption of marriage and legitimacy of children. The burden of rebutting such presumption is always on the person who denies the name under Section 112 of Evidence Act. And if husband, sometimes husband disputes the paternity but refuses or neglects to undergo the DNA test, then it is said that adverse inference can be drawn. This is so far as regards the claim of children is, minor children is concerned, because that is tried to be defeated by making such allegation. Sometimes it happens that husband and wife enter into a customary divorce or agreement outside the court. Some amount is given to her to release her right of maintenance, like lump sum amount, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, and she gives up her right. And then that amount is over, or then she comes to the court and he says that she has already given up, surrendered her right, and therefore she cannot be entitled. And in such situation, it is held that she is residing by mutual consent separately, and therefore 125(4) comes into picture, and therefore she is not entitled to maintenance. And then Supreme Court says that has clarified the stipulation and held that it applies only to cases where the marriage between the parties is subsisting and not where it has come to an end. It cannot be invoked to deny maintenance to the divorced wife on the ground that she is residing separately by mutual consent. This is again dealing with the right of maintenance. It says that this right accrues to her the moment she enters into marriage, the minute she enters into marriage. It is not only a moral obligation, but also a legal obligation. And it is for destitute women. Award of maintenance normally should be from the date of application, order, depending upon the facts of the case. This is latest decision of 2020, which I would like to consider so far as 125 is concerned, because uh, it is held that order passed under section 125 can be reviewed, and the bar of 362 CRPC will not come into picture. And in this respect, the provisions of section 125(3), which expressly empowers magistrate to cancel his own order, and 127, which contemplates exercise of continuous jurisdiction, was considered, and it was held that it is necessary to interpret section 125 in a manner to advance justice and to protect a woman for whose benefit it is enacted. So the Supreme Court and all the judiciary is from time to time emphasizing on the protection of women and the fact that this is a social justice legislation. In this judgment of Sanjeev Kumar, the Supreme Court has also taken note that this jurisdiction under 125 is equality jurisdiction where unequal parties are pitted against each other in adversarial proceeding. It was also considered that this is a social context judging. And in that respect, Professor Madhav Menon's article on social context judging was also considered, and it was held that it is incumbent upon judiciary to be sensitive towards such inequalities and to advance the substantive cause of justice. Now, so far as jurisdiction aspect of 125 CRP is concerned, I mean, so far as wife is concerned, she can file the application where she resides, where he resides, where both of them have lastly resided together. But so far as parents is concerned, there is some difficulty because they have to file the petition where the son resides or daughter resides from whom they are claiming, or where lastly they have resided together. They don't have the option of filing the application where they are residing, and sometimes it may cause hardship to the parents, but that is what is held by the Supreme Court because of the section itself, where they said that where respondent resides, where he and she resided lastly, or where they last resided together. Then married daughter's liability to maintain parents is also recognized in this judgment long back. I mean, Vijaya Arbat versus Kashirao, 1987 Supreme Court. How the claim under section 125 of CRPC is to be considered is laid down by the Kerala High Court. I mean, I am taking review of majority of the High Courts. When it is held that court must set its mind attuned to the frequency of the object of legislation, which is often reminded by the various judicial pronouncements. That is social beneficial legislation. Only if this is done, pleadings can be properly read, evidence can be properly applied, and ultimately the goal of the system can be achieved, that is to do the substantive justice. About recovery proceedings, law is well settled that merely because he is sent to jail or imprisonment for default in payment, his liability to pay the amount does not go away, because that is a mode of execution to send him to jail for imprisonment, but satisfaction does not. It is not a mode of satisfaction. And how many times he can be sent to jail? It is held that magistrate can order maximum of 1 month's imprisonment in execution proceeding in one application. And this is explained in the judgment of Kerala High Court also. Whether every time she has to file a separate application and it is to be numbered separately, it is held that not necessary. Subsequent applications are only supplementary, because 1 year limitation is there, and hence she has to, after every 1 year, she has to file a fresh application, but it can be filed in original pending application itself. Now we come, I mean 125, because this is the main provision and therefore I have dealt with it in detail, and those considerations are applicable for maintenance law in other proceedings also. Now Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act is particularly about the Hindus only, where the maintenance is considered in the light of food, clothing, residence, education, medical attendance and treatment. And as regards unmarried daughter, reasonable expenses incidental to her marriage, and minor who has not completed the age of 18 years. In this judgment, it was held that father is bound to pay for the reimburse the expenses incurred by the mother for the marriage of unmarried daughter. Even at that time, he has not given that amount. Subsequently, he has to reimburse it. Then we are also having section 18, which is legally wedded wife. She is having on all these grounds right to claim maintenance, which is just an additional remedy to her apart from section 125 of CRPC. But again, it is linked to her chastity. The moment she becomes unchaste or ceases to be Hindu, she loses her right. Hindu law also provides maintenance to widowed daughter-in-law, children, legitimate, illegitimate, parents, infirm or aged, liability of both daughter and son, unmarried daughter, minor or otherwise. Maintenance to be kept can be kept as a charge on the property under section 27, and 23 states how the amount of maintenance to be decided and which are the factors which I have already said, that is their socio-economic position, reasonable wants, whether justified in residing separately, number of persons entitled, value of the property, etc. Apart from these two rights, we are also having maintenance under Domestic Violence Act. Sorry, it is Violence Act, wherein under section 12(1), when the application is filed under section 20, monetary reliefs are provided, and one of the monetary relief is maintenance for aggrieved person. Aggrieved person is defined under section 2 to be a woman, and therefore this right is available to woman as well as her children, including an order in addition to an order of maintenance under section 125 CRPC or any other law in the force. So this is an additional remedy. It clearly states that this amount should be adequate, fair and reasonable, consistent with the standard of living to which she is accustomed. It can be a lump sum amount also. We have to remember the section 36 of Domestic Violence Act, which provides that the remedies under this act or this act is not in derogation of any other law, but in addition to any remedies provided under any other law. Only the amount is to be adjusted. If she is already getting certain amount in that proceeding, other proceeding, then in this proceeding, after adjusting that amount, the quantum can be fixed. It is held by the Supreme Court in this 2018 judgment that adjustment can be made and maintenance can be granted under both the provisions, domestic violence as well as 125 of CRPC. This judgment is important in the light that under this judgment, the Supreme Court has even directed maintenance to be paid against the brother-in-law, because the husband was doing partnership, business in joint family with the brother-in-law. Husband was no more, and therefore it was held that a respondent under section 2Q of the Domestic Violence Act is any adult male person, and therefore even the brother-in-law is also liable to pay maintenance. What the Supreme Court has held is that all the definitions under DV Act indicate width and amplitude of the intent of Parliament in creating both an obligation and remedy in terms of enactment, and therefore it should not be curtailed in any way. The three-bench judge of the Supreme Court has in this judgment of Lalita has held that maintenance can be claimed under the provisions of DV Act even if the claimant is not a legally wedded wife and therefore not entitled to claim of maintenance under 125 of CRPC. So like Badshah, maybe we can consider this provision in this case law also. Indra's judgment, Domestic Violence Act recognizes relationship in the nature of marriage, and therefore that woman also gets right of maintenance because she becomes an aggrieved woman. So which can be the criteria to consider whether the relationship really falls in the nature of marriage? And that is what Supreme Court has laid down, is totally 8 criteria. That is duration of the period of relationship. It should not be, very small, meager, but it should be reasonable. Whether they shared the household, that is whether they really stayed together, had common mess, everything, pooling of resources and financial arrangement, supporting each other financially, sharing bank accounts, acquiring immovable property. Because in the Velusamy judgment, some criteria were laid down, and these criteria are elaborated in this judgment. Domestic arrangement, sexual relationship, not for pleasure, but for procreation, for emotional, intimate relation, having children, socialization, whether they were holding out as couple, and intention and conduct of parties. If all these conditions are satisfied, then only a woman in relationship in the nature of marriage can claim or get the maintenance under the DV Act. Then we are also having, in the Indra judgment itself, it is held that DV Act does not take care of long-standing relationship where the one of the parties is already married. That is the Velusamy judgment, whether she was eligible for marriage. If already married, then they can't be eligible for marriage. Supreme Court has said that though inequities do exist in such relationship, it calls for amendment of the Act, but at present they cannot be. DV Act also does not recognize domestic relationship between same-sex partners, that is gay and lesbians. Therefore, under DV Act, they may not get the maintenance. Apart from these two laws, which are applicable to women of all the religions, we are also having the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act. I mean, we all know that this act was passed as a counterblast to the judgment of the Supreme Court in Shahabanu's case, wherein it was held that husband is liable to pay maintenance to the deserted wife even after the period of iddat. And Muslim law does not restrict that right. But then, against this judgment of Shahabanu, we know a lot of protest was made, and then the law was amended, and the Muslim woman's right to on Divorce Act was passed. This law was considered, I mean, we will not go to that Supreme Court's, I have already said, so we will go to the section 3 of the Muslim woman's right to, which grants her right to maintenance. They have not said maintenance in the, along with it, they have also said reasonable and fair provision and maintenance to be made and paid to her within that period by her former husband. But this within that period, the term is defined by because it was intended by the legislature that husband will provide for her maintenance only for that period. But then the Supreme Court has elaborated and expanded this definition in the judgment of Daniel Latifi, saying that reasonable and fair provision and maintenance is not limited for that period, but it extends for the entire life of divorced Muslim woman unless she gets married for the second time. So amount is to be paid within that period, but it should cover her requirement for the entire life. That is what, so the object of the legislation in a way stands defeated, because now that right is expanded for her entire life. It was further held, as I said, within used in Woodman on or before, and therefore before the expiration of that period, the husband is bound to pay maintenance to the wife, and if he fails to do so, then wife is entitled to recover it by filing application. Such a provision can be made even by way of installments also. As regards the right of minor children, it is said that even they can file the application under section 125 of CRPC. That right is not affected even by section 31B of the Muslim Rights Act. Under Muslim this law, there is unique provision of section 4, which lays down the responsibility of payment of maintenance to a divorced Muslim woman from one to the other, like first the husband, then her relatives like children, then parents, then other heirs, their capability or inability of making payment, and lastly the work board. So she can apply for anyone first. It is not necessary she should go by sequence, but the liability to maintain the woman and children is now cast on all of these persons and institutions. Divorce movement is not required to proceed. That is what I have already said. Then we are having Shabana Bano judgment, wherein it is held that divorced Muslim woman is entitled to file for maintenance under section 125 of CRPC. Also, her application is maintainable in the family court. So she need not necessarily go to that Muslim woman's right to on Divorce Act. Dagdu Chattu Pathan is important from the Muslim woman's point of view because it decides, because the moment she files an application, the claim of divorce or talaq is raised, and therefore it says how the talaq, oral talaq, whether it can be accepted. It should be only for reasonable clause and after attempt of reconciliation have failed. Shami Mara also says the same, that merely taking the ground plea of divorce is not sufficient. I'm just rushing through because we have to cover to give the time for interaction also. And then maintenance under various provisions of personal laws. We know that Section 24 of Hindu Marriage Act gives maintenance pendant right, and it can be granted even when there is a petition for nullity. Till the decree is granted, it is said that amount has to be granted. It is not decree, it is petition for nullity. Who can file? As I said, under Hindu Marriage Act, both husband and wife. Who is unable, he can file having no sufficient income. Amount has to be reasonable, as I said, payable monthly, application to be decided within 60 days. And for non-payment, the petition can be dismissed for default or defense can be struck off as the case may be. 25 permanent alimony, the same either husband or wife, gross sum, monthly sum, periodical payment, same criteria as order can be modified also in case the other party in whose favor order is passed has sexual relations outside the wedlock. Section 26 talks of maintenance for minor children, including their education expenses. This judgment of Chandhavan is important because Section 25 talks of passing of at the time of passing of decree or subsequent thereto. But Chandhavan makes it clear that it is not every decree, whether it is a decree of restitution or restitution of conjugal rights or judicial separation, but it is only when the decrees of divorce, that is affecting marital status, but does not include any order dismissing the petition, because that may be a decree, but then it will not be a decree in the sense to grant her alimony. Then she will have to go to other legislations. A maintenance under Special Marriage Act, the same criteria like pendant light, then permanent alimony, by securing charge also order can be modified also. Children are also having the right. The only thing is, as I said, Special Marriage Act does not recognize the right of husband to claim maintenance, and that we have to remember that only Hindu Marriage Act and Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act grant that right. Otherwise the criteria are same. Under the Indian Divorce Act also the same criteria as pendant light, permanent, same considerations, application to be decided. And only additional thing under the Indian Divorce Act is that for the purpose securing the right, the court can direct to execute a proper instrument, like keeping a charge of executing some transfer deed, etc. Then we are having under the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act, and as I said, it is available to both husband and wife during pendency and also weekly. Here there is payment can be made even weekly. I mean, this is something new provision because we are doing comparative study. Other acts provided monthly or periodical or lump sum, but this act even provides for weekly or monthly payment. And then permanent alimony, the same factors, charge to be kept on immovable or movable property, and the order can be challenged, cancelled, modified at any stage. These are the various personal laws under which the maintenance is awarded. Coming to the last slide, that of Captain, again I am going to the, it is Veena, not Meena, where again the Supreme Court has said in Captain Ramesh Chandra Kaushal that when we are deciding the woman's right to maintenance, the brooding presence of the constitutional empathy for the weaker section of the society, like women and children, must inform interpretation if it has to have social relevance. So viewed, it is possible to be selective in picking out the interpretation out of two alternatives which advance the cause, and that is the cause of derelicts, or that is the cause of weaker section, because ultimately it is a social welfare legislation. All the legislations relating to maintenance, they consider the weaker sections of society, minor children, the women, or age-old parents, and for their benefit, the provisions of the Act are required to be interpreted in that way. So that is so far as regards the right of maintenance is concerned. And now we will, I think we can keep it open for interaction.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop sharing. I am stopping sharing so that.
Yes, ma'am. We will take the
yes.
question. We will ask someone.
Yes.
That they can start posting the questions again, because
yes.
The person who have already posted the question, they can repost it again, because meanwhile, a lot of questions and other things have happened during the chat.
Yeah, that's why.
Ma'am, this is why I will take the other way around.
Okay.
Praveen Kumar. Can we file a perjury case on file where wife files a false cruelty grounds and those false grounds are proved false by documentary evidence? I will say that today we will be only taking the questions only on the maintenance part. Your anxiety to understand things can always be better, but today, since the topic is only on maintenance, kindly post questions only on the maintenance. Yes, ma'am. We are taking the questions. This is by Vishal Bagde. Vishal Vadile. Can a wife have a right on the property? No, if wife makes false complaint, again I am saying, kindly post questions on maintenance only. This is by Lal Tejwani. His question is in general in nature. Suggestion: is it time that maintenance laws are made gender neutral?
Yes. If the time comes, definitely they are required to be made gender neutral. And as I said already, there are two laws, one that of Hindu Marriage Act and the other that of Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act. Both these laws are gender neutral. Whosoever makes the application, whosoever is in need of the same, whosoever feels that other party is earning better and he has to maintain that lifestyle, he can file such application. And if he satisfies the legal requirement, he will get it. So two laws are already gender neutral. The rest of the laws are not yet.
Then another question by Nilesh is in DV. There is a judgment that no DV, no maintenance. So first evidence has to be laid for section 20 of the DV Act.
Yes,
is it so?
Under section, the application is to be filed under section 12 of the Act. And at the time of disposal of that application, that is under section 20, monetary reliefs can be granted. That is what it says, that while deciding application under section 12, these monetary reliefs can be granted. And one of the monetary relief is maintenance. Now, if under section 12 of the Act, the application is to be filed, there she has to aver and ultimately prove also that she was subjected to domestic violence. There is apprehension of domestic violence because domestic violence definition is very wide, encompassing under the Domestic Violence Act. It even considers the apprehension thereof that she is likely to be subjected to domestic violence. If that is satisfied, then only she will get the maintenance under section 20. And again, it is a discretionary relief. We know it, that maintenance is not as a matter of right or matter of fact. If she proves the required requisite criteria, she will be awarded, otherwise not. But DV has to be proved. And it has to be stated that domestic violence also recognizes economic abuse. And there are several judgments which say that not providing maintenance, not providing money for her sustenance also amounts to economic abuse. And therefore, it is when she says that I am not being given the amount of maintenance and he doesn't show the proof, then it follows that she is entitled to get maintenance because her case falls within the definition of domestic violence.
This is by a person, it says, Manjula Biswas.
Yes.
In case the husband is living in penury, can he claim maintenance?
Yes, he can, provided wife is earning better than him. If wife is also not earning, if wife is not having actual income, then definitely he being an able-bodied, he has to earn and maintain her. Because under Hindu Marriage Act, I must state you from my own experience that while working in the family court, I have awarded such maintenance to in, in maybe few cases, but there were definitely cases. For example, in one case, the husband has undergone the accident and he had become paralyzed. He could not work. He was no more able-bodied to consider that he is able to maintain also. So under Hindu Marriage Act, I had awarded him pendant light alimony as well as permanent alimony. Fortunately, in that case, the wife was working. She was getting not much, but she was earning something, and therefore, out of that amount, I could direct her to give some amount of maintenance to husband also. So, as regards your question, yes, if he is living in penury, but wife is earning, then only he will be entitled. But if wife is also not earning, then he being an able-bodied person, he has to do the work and earn. That is what Supreme Court has said in Bhuvan's case. Supreme Court said that he has to even work the physical labor also. He can't claim that he is insolvent, he has no money, because he is able-bodied, and that presumption that he is able to earn is always there.
It says that a common question that let's assume a DV Act is ultimately proved that the evidence is to the contrary. Can the amount which has been paid recovered?
Can be recovered on the dismissal of DV Act petition. Your question is the application under DV Act is dismissed ultimately, and in meanwhile, pendant light, he has paid some amount. Yes. That is what the question is. Okay, yes, whether that amount can be recovered, it depends upon the discretion of the court. While disposing of the application, the court may pass requisite order. If court feels that application was purely vexatious, false, the court may make such order. So at the time of final argument, you can also make a request to that effect to the court to consider this aspect. If court feels that no, during pendency, she was definitely entitled, it was not a totally false or vexatious application as such, but on some technicalities or on some ground she has failed to prove, but that is no ground to reimburse that amount. And therefore, it depends entirely on the discretion of the court, but you have to bring the facts to the notice of the court while you are seeking reimbursement of the amount paid in case of dismissal of the application. So no straitjackets, yes or no, it is the discretion of the court.
Okay.
If the court passes order, then only you are entitled. Otherwise, you can't pass the execution order. In the final order, court should say specifically something about it. If the court order is silent, then also you can't ask for recovery of the amount. So at the time of final argument, please argue this point and ensure that court makes some observations to that effect in its order. Yes, sir.
This is by Dinesh Rajpurohit. Whether maintenance under section 125 of CRPC in divorce case and maintenance under DV Act to one woman is allowed or not?
I already said that yes, it can be allowed under on all the acts also. I mean, it is, as I said, DV Act is in addition to section 36 of DV Act is very clear. It says that the rights or remedies given under this act are not in derogation of the any other law in force, but in addition to. And therefore, section 20 and subclause 3, which deals with maintenance, also says that maintenance can be granted in addition to the maintenance which she is getting under any other law, even 125 of CRPC. But what is important, and I showed the judgment also, is that amount should be adjusted. If in this proceeding, present proceeding, if you feel that she should get 7,000 towards maintenance, but in the earlier proceeding she is getting 5,000, then in this proceeding you can award only 2,000. So amount adjustment of amount is necessary under whichever law she may be getting previously.
This is by Deepa. If the husband is not paying the maintenance since some years for the child and the wife, not a divorced couple, what should be done? Husband keeps on giving reasons for delayed hearing.
Then there is proceedings for recovery of the amount of maintenance under 125 of CRPC, which are laying down the procedure. One is that of recovery warrant under his property, if any, can be sold off auction, under like recovery of fine, that is the same remedy is made available for recovery of this unpaid amount of maintenance. And second remedy is issuing a warrant against him for his arrest. And then if he may prefer to remain in jail, but that will not absolve him from the liability. That these are the only two remedies. Execution, as I said, is always there. And if he files any other proceeding, then again you can say that he is not paying. Therefore, that proceeding can be dismissed for default, or even that proceeding, if he is a respondent, his defense can be struck off. Otherwise, not.
This is by Satik Gupta. Ma'am, can husband take an excuse of coronavirus and economic situation to deny maintenance?
He cannot, because that situation is available to everyone. On the contrary, she is more in need of money because of the coronavirus, corona pandemic, and also because of the lockdown, because she is totally locked in the house, having no source of income, having the liability of children, and therefore in a way her requirements is more. Husband can't deny or defeat her claim. At the most, husband can claim some time to pay that amount, just like nowadays bank are doing, that you can pay interest or loan installment after 3 months, but liability doesn't go away, liability remains. Only thing is, it can be at the most postponed, but in such situation it is difficult to postpone also, because she is also undergoing the same hazards or difficulties like him.
Ma'am, could you just explain to the participants as to, let's assume there are changed circumstances, what is the way out after section 125 has been assessed?
Then there is one section 127 of CRPC is there, which enables the party to approach, any of the party to approach to the court against whom the order is passed, or in whose favor order is passed. In whose favor order is passed, sometimes the wife comes to the court to seek enhancement of maintenance, and husband comes to the court to get amount to reduce or to cancel. Reduce because he has lost the job, he has lost the earning source, or to reduce the amount because he is unable, he has retired, or those reasons. But wife can come because of inflation, the cost of living has increased, and therefore her requirements are increased. So any of the party, even if she has started living in adultery also, he can come. Even if she has married, he can come. So 127 is a clear remedy which provides for modification, varying, and also cancellation of order. So any of the party can come. And this remedy is available under all the laws, even matrimonial laws also, which we saw. There also it is available.
Ma'am, is there any criteria for making the maintenance? This is the common question, because since we would be running against time, we are just taking some questions which are common in nature. It says, is there any formula of assessing the maintenance?
Quantum of maintenance, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So quantum of maintenance, as I already said, the major criteria is earnings of both. Whether both of them are earning equally, then no maintenance. Only children will get, and liability of children will be also shared between them. But if her income is less, his income is more, then compensate so that she can lead the same lifestyle. Suppose she is not earning at all, actual earning and not earning capacity. If she is not earning at all, then to enable her to maintain the same lifestyle which she was leading in the house of the husband. In some, then there are liabilities, like he has already taken the loan for home, he is having the liability of old parents, unmarried sister, younger brother, then those liabilities are also considered. Liabilities of children are also considered. Supreme Court has in one of its judgments says that 25% of his income can be paid as maintenance. But as I said, we don't never know the actual income. Her attempt is to exaggerate his income. His attempt is to suppress his income. And therefore, we have to really assess the evidence on the record, having regard to their lifestyle, strata of society. And for that, we have to consider everything. And nowadays, they bring all this evidence, whether he is having the membership of this particular cars, credit cards, then cars, which make of car, Mercedes, Maruti, and everything. All this sort of evidence is brought. What sort of house he is residing. So all this, taking into consideration all these factors, the quantum is to be decided, and it is bound to differ in each and every case depending upon the facts.
Ma'am, can we move simultaneously? This is a question which I have just received.
Yes.
Under the DV Act, under the CRPC, as well as under the Hindu Marriage Act.
Yes, you can simultaneously move under all the proceedings, whichever proceedings decided first and the amount is granted in that proceeding will be considered in other proceedings for adjustment. As I said, if under 125 is decided first and you are getting 7,000, then in other applications it will be considered whether there is really need for you to get more than that 7,000. And if court finds that this is just decided last month and therefore I don't find it necessary to grant any more amount, then on merits court can say that she is already getting sufficient amount and therefore I do not find a reason to grant further or additional amount. But if court feels that that amount is not sufficient or there is change in circumstance, like thereafter his salary is increased, promotion, increment, or some child is born, then definitely court can grant additional. So depending upon which proceeding is decided first and how much amount is granted in it, the amount will be granted in other proceedings or those proceedings may be dismissed also because there is no reason to grant any additional amount.
Some of the view invariably in the chat box where the gents are, maintenance is invariably tilted towards women.
Yes.
Is there any way out?
Because as I said, the law is gender specific. When it is made for and taking protection of Article 15(3) of the Constitution, which permits to make special laws for women, Article 39 of Directive Principle of State Policy, and then Article 21 of the Constitution. Maintenance, as I have already said in the background itself, that it is a socio-beneficial legislation for the purpose of weaker sections of society. And our social conditions are such that in majority of cases, men are earning and not the women. And even if they are earning at times because of the child rearing and childbearing, there is disruption in their career. They may not even, women lawyers, they will be changed. I mean, after some years, because of being at home to look after the children, even if they come back to practice, their income may not be the same like that of a male lawyer. And in such situation, it is felt that yes, there is necessity to balance their contribution to the family and by way in monetary terms. And therefore, at present, the conditions in society as such that these are laws mainly meant for women and therefore interpreted and applied for women. As I said, all the laws are in favor of granting right to women only. Only 2 laws are granting right to men. And if they justify their case, definitely they will also get it. And who knows, in near future also, there will be changing social conditions. Accordingly, the laws will also change, granting right to men also.
And this we are taking from the Facebook. This is by Gurala Lakshmindrayan. Non-earning should be considered while granting maintenance under the DV Act as well as a CRPC. No, this is a recommendation. One is.
Yes, about non-earning, I have already dealt that it is the actual earning and not the earning capacity. That is what Supreme Court has repeatedly said in various of his judgment, that it is, she may be qualified. I mean, she was MSc doing PhD, but even then in latest judgment, Megha Khandelwal, Supreme Court says that no, actual earning she should be. So at present, the law doesn't say that. I mean, law and interpretation doesn't. Who knows? Interpretation keeps on changing depending demand and responses of the.
This is by Nilesh. In a DV, if a wife is earning equally with the husband and the case is at interim stage, will the wife get interim maintenance merely on the allegations in the DIR, or a summary trial must be held as per the judgments? Number 2, also if the wife conceals her high lifestyle and earning and shows herself as a destitute under Section 23 of the DV Act, can she still get maintenance, and will she be allowed to abuse the process of court?
Domestic Violence Act, is a summary, again, a very swift, effective remedy. It is said so. Within 3 days, the notice is to be returned. Within 60 days, the application is to be disposed of. And therefore, the preliminary inquiry, as you are saying, is not contemplated therein. What is to be done? The court has to see the prima facie case, and on that basis, interim maintenance is to be granted. So, prima facie at that stage, adducing evidence, leading evidence is not contemplated, because this proceeding has to be decided very swiftly. The two inquiries are not contemplated. That is what the judgments under DV Act says. And therefore, at prima facie stage only, if you, I mean, husband produces the evidence showing that, yeah, her lifestyle is very really high. Like, you know, if you are saying that she is leading lavish lifestyle, you will definitely get evidence of her bank accounts, of her car, of her membership to the clubs, of her membership, of her moving around, roaming, going out of country, or she is having credit cards, bank balance. I mean, all this evidence, documentary evidence can be gathered, it can be produced. Even, I mean, you know, so prima facie, just like under interim injunction, we produce prima facie. Similarly, here also prima facie evidence will be considered, prima facie case will be considered, but no preliminary inquiry as such in the context of leading evidence is contemplated under the DV Act, and therefore court may not allow that opportunity. Even if you say that she is, I mean, cheating or suppressing the facts from the court, court will say that in the end, if it is found that amount granted was not due to her, the court may cancel and court may pass the order of reimbursing also. But at that stage, prima facie taking the view, the whatever is produced before the material is produced before the court, court will pass the order.
This is where Ravi is saying, if the wife leaves the husband and lives with the other husband in a live-in relationship, can she still claim maintenance under section 125 CRPC?
As I said, 125(4) CRPC is very clear. If she is living in adultery, then she is deprived from maintenance. It can be cancelled the moment she is start living in adultery. The word living in adultery is interpreted in a way that there should be continuous course of living in adultery. It should not be a single act of adulterous, adulterous conduct. Single act will not deprive her. But if you bring evidence on record to show that yes, she is living in adultery in the sense that she is living in relationship in the nature of marriage with some third person, and Indra Sharma's criteria are shown that they are residing jointly, they are residing as husband and wife, they are having sexual relations, all these factors are shown, then definitely she will lose her right of maintenance, because that is an important criteria. Remember our concept of maintenance, I mean, women organizations are also saying it's connected with the wife living chaste. Chaste means not being in adultery, not living in, not straying in any way. So that concept is necessarily connected with living chaste, having no out of the wedlock relations. Then only she is entitled for maintenance, otherwise not. So the moment it is proved, she will lose that claim.
Ma'am, this is on Facebook. It's by Jayajit Sharma. Can a wife claim again for maintenance if husband didn't follow the court order passed in 1996?
If husband can?
If husband had not followed the order passed way back in 1996.
She can ask for enhancement under section 127 of CRPC. Instead of filing a fresh application, she can ask for modification of that order, varying of that order, because at that time she might have got only, provided there is no such drastic change in circumstance, like she is remaining the same woman, she has not remarried, again got divorced, or she has not been, husband has, some changes have taken place. But if both the condition of both the husband and wife is same, then she can ask for 127, an application under section 127 for enhancement of the maintenance instead of filing the fresh application. Because if she files fresh application under section 125 of CRPC, she will have to prove again all the earlier criteria, that she is legally wedded wife, she is unable to maintain herself, that husband has refused and neglected to maintain her. All these factors she will have to prove afresh. Instead of that, she can go for 127 and she can say that that order was passed, I had applied for execution or I have made efforts, but he has not paid. Now that order is also not sufficient and therefore I am coming under 127 of CRPC.
Ma'am,
So
we will
that
be
is-
taking, yes, we will be
Yes.
taking a joint question because few people have asked. Let's assume the maintenance have been paid.
Hmm.
What is the manner of recovering that excess amount if it is proved that the claim raised by him is not good?
It can be adjusted, na, that amount with the order of the court, or it can be, in future payment of maintenance. And if the order is cancelled itself, then you will have to get it cancelled from the court. Without that, you can't do it.
Can it be done retrospectively? That is the core issue.
It can be done provided you get the order from the court. Suppose in this month you have paid rupees 5,000, though the actual amount due was 2,500 only. Then in the next month you can show that as per the calculation this much amount was due. I have already paid her 5,000 and therefore in this month I am not liable to pay. So it is by way of adjustment retrospectively. Amount is paid previously. And if, as I said, if it is paid previously, like interim maintenance, as they said, now the order is cancelled, then at the time of cancellation, you will have to get the specific order from the court that he is entitled to recover the amount which he has already paid or paid in excess. But without order of the court, you cannot do it.
This is by Surinder Pal Sharma on the Facebook. Can wife claim maintenance under Section 125 CRPC if she herself defaulted in making the appearance in second motion of section after 13B case after receiving major part of the alimony settled mutually between the parties?
13B, she has received the alimony.
Major
That
part.
is what he's saying under mutual
Yes.
consent divorce.
Yes.
Okay, then whether under 125 she can claim the maintenance. That
Yes.
is the question, right?
Yes.
So far as alimony under mutual consent, the law is somewhat strange, but we will have to consider it. It is held that whatever amount she has received, judgments of Supreme Court are there, Otash Singh, etc. Wherein it is said that whatever amount she has received under mutual consent agreement, if that amount is sufficient to maintain her for a lifetime, that amount is reasonable one, then only she will not be entitled to get any further amount. But if the court comes to the conclusion that amount is not sufficient, was not sufficient for her lifetime, and now she requires the money, then her application is maintainable. Therefore, it will depend upon the merits and not simplicity or dismissal. Court will entertain that application. Court will consider whether that amount was reasonable. Suppose she is given only rupees 1 lakh by way of mutual consent, and after 30 years, 20 years, she comes to the court and says has become age old. Both of them are she's still unmarried. She's not living in adultery, all the conditions satisfied, then the court may feel that amount of rupees 1 lakh was hardly sufficient for her lifetime maintenance, and therefore some reasonable amount is required to be granted, because ultimately it is a beneficial, socio-beneficial legislation for women. So her interest will be tried to be protected. But suppose in mutual consent agreement she is granted substantial amount of rupees 10 lakh, the court may say that she should have used that amount properly, should not have spent that amount, and at this stage we find it difficult. So it depends upon the facts. Sometimes it may happen that she starts suffering from incurable disease like cancer, heart, and she requires money for medical expenses. She requires money because she was earning, but now she is not earning. She may say that when mutual consent agreement took place, I was having some income, now I don't have. So at any time she can come to the court, and as per our law she can be granted the maintenance. That is what the interpretation of Supreme Court. It is said that it is a statutory right which she cannot bargain or surrender. It is against Section 25(3) of the Contract Act. It can against public policy, and therefore such right cannot be given up by her for some lump sum amount. But that amount which she has received will be definitely considered, and accordingly further order can be passed.
If the wife is having amounts of last divorce, then can she still claim maintenance from her second marriage?
It will depend. I mean, if she already getting the amount of from maintenance from the first husband from whom she has taken the divorce, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that husband has not got cancelled that amount of maintenance
Yes.
because she has already married second time, so that order no more will be remain in force actually, because she has got remarried. She is no more divorcee because she has remarried. But even then, unless that order is cancelled, I think she should get it cancelled at least, or yeah, her husband should get it cancelled. Second husband, she may not get it because it will again depend on facts and circumstances. But normally, such situation does not arise, because if she is getting from the first husband, then uh, equity logics law does not mandate that she should be also awarded the maintenance from the second husband. But again, it will depend upon the facts. If her amount which she is getting from the first husband is really meager, then court may or direct the second husband also to pay, because it is his statutory duty also to maintain her, and therefore the court may ask the amount to be adjusted.
Since we had discussed, and the participants also know that invariably we keep the session for 1.5 hours. There are a lot of questions still pouring, but we are running out of time. We can always have a second session, maybe on a different perspective, since we have done on the maintenance. And the way people have actually latched up on the today's webinar on the platform as well as on the Facebook, it only shows that people were actually willing and eager to learn on the aspects of maintenance, because as you started the thought process with this stating therein that maintenance is a perspective which the courts are quite clogged down with the maintenance issues. Ma'am, one issue which they are all saying is, though I will be making a request that if these PPTs could be shared so that we can share it on our WhatsApp group.
Yes,
Number
I
one.
will.
And please, ma'am. So those who have joined with us for the first time, they can connect us on a WhatsApp number of Beyond Law CLC, which we have posted on our group. And even in the invite from which you had joined to this platform, the number is written on there. You can join us and connect us for the webinars. As we all know that the persons who have been associated with us, that we are holding webinars continuously on different issues. So do stay connected with us for the insights of the webinars. The video of the present session would also be uploaded on our channel of Beyond Law CLC. Do share, like, and subscribe the same. For tomorrow's session, I'm just apprising you the topic. Tomorrow's session would be by inquisitorial system versus adversarial system of criminal justice. The session is by Honorable Mr. Justice G. Raja Surya, retired judge of the Madras High Court. So do stay connected tomorrow at 4 p.m. We believe that the session would be as enriching as we always have been. Those who have joined us today for the first time, they know that they would appreciate that the insights given by these speakers are of immense knowledge. It only they are immaculate speakers with immense knowledge. Do join, stay safe, stay healthy, and ma'am, thank you on behalf of Beyond Law CLC, the participants who joined on us on this platform, and also on the Facebook, and those who would also watch our videos, including the present session. Thank you to everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Okay.